extra quick spot.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I tell you what, a person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Okay, well, we're back, part 4 of our long discussion on verbs, and I think now we're going to start getting into more complex concepts, much more directly related to what we need to be able to do with our understanding of verbs. We're going to start light with that, and because today we're going to start on verbals. Yes, verbals, funny sounding name, but not a funny concept, okay? Because verbals are one of the most tricky parts of this whole verb usage thing, because they often make students confused, and students often overlook them or don't recognize them, and that creates a bunch of other problems, and we're going to talk about that right now. Okay, so let's get down to business here. We are talking about verbals, and we don't want to watch the video. Now, a verbal is a word that used to be a verb. It used to be a verb, and in some cases, it wants to be a verb again. So when you take a verb and you do something with it and make it not a verb anymore, then, of course, you create another type of word. And when I mean by another type of word is you make it into another part of speech. Well, there are 3 types of verbals. We have gerunds, we have participles, and of course we have infinitives. Each of them creating or turning the word into a different part of speech. I think the most common and the most easiest to recognize would be the gerund, because a gerund is when we add ing to the verb and we turn it into the part of speech known as the noun. And of course, it being a noun, it becomes what a noun becomes in a sentence, and that can be anything from a subject of a sentence to the object of a preposition to the object of a transitive verb. So it does basically anything that a noun does. Now, when we talk about the participle, we're talking about the present participle, and here we can also add an ing, but the ing word here is doing something a bit different than the ing in the gerund, because when you add an ing for the purpose of it being a present part to the present participle, we're making the verb into an adjective. This is going to describe a noun. It's going to describe a noun. The infinitive, of course, it's a 2-word part. Meaning now we're not just talking about one word, we're talking about 2 words now. And usually, almost always, it's going to start with to, like, to run, to think, so forth and so on. The easiest to recognize, maybe not the easiest to understand, because an infinitive can be everything almost. It can be a noun, it can be an adjective, it can be an adverb, and it just really depends on how you're using it in the sentence. So it's not as simple as a gerund, definitely. Gerunds are always going to be nouns. And a little different than participles, where the participle is going to act as an adjective. I failed to mention also with participles that you can also add an ed at the end of them, and they still will be a gerund or a participle here. Okay, so let's continue here. Okay, we don't want to watch the video. Okay, so let's look at some sentences and see if we can identify the verbal in the sentence and understand how the verbals are actually being used in the sentence. The children, crying and exhausted, were guided out of the collapsed mine. Of course, here we know The children is the subject. So that's probably going to give us our first indication of what crying and exhausted, these two words that, of course, they can be verbs, or they used to be verbs, but they're not. It kind of tells us exactly what they're doing in this sentence because we already have a subject. And so that would probably mean that crying and exhausted, yes, are participles. I know you said it before I did. So. Okay. And of course, we're definitely looking at crying. Let's look at crying again in another situation. Crying will not get you anywhere. Now, there is no subject here, or none that we can immediately identify, but we do see a verb. So we're just going to have to assume that crying here is the verb. Is the subject for that verb. It has an ing, so that is possible because it can be a gerund, and we know gerunds are always going to be nouns. So yes, I think crying here is being used as a gerund. Let's look at this again. I don't like crying in public unless I'm getting paid for it. Well, crying again, I think is the subject. So what can crying be doing here? Like, of course, is, as we have already learned before, a helping verb. And if it's helping, or is it? No, it's a linking verb. Linking crying to I. Yes, very interesting. Or is it? Let's pay attention, please. Crying here is, of course, giving us more information about like. Like is a verb, and crying is going to be receiving the action of like. And there we go. There we have it. Okay, I don't like to cry in public unless I'm getting paid for it. Well, in this case, I think that to cry is going to be, of course, an adverb, giving us more information about like, and it's an infinitive. It's very clear that it's an infinitive because it has the to form of our verbal here, to cry. All right, so I know, verbal's really exciting. I'm so excited, I don't know what to do. Let's just continue. If you want to see that last one there, you can. Just more of the same thing. Let's kind of put this in a little bit of perspective here. Let's look at a sad sentence here. An increased concentration of carbon dioxide and certain other gases in the Earth's atmosphere contributing to global warming. Okay, so we said a whole lot, but let's look at this sentence a little closer here. And first off, does this sentence have a subject-verb relationship? Let's look at it a little closer. An increased concentration of carbon dioxide. Okay. And certain other gases in the Earth's atmosphere. Okay. Contributing to global warming. Well, I don't think we detected a verb in this sentence. So we got a whole lot being said here, but we're not really saying anything. The only word in this sentence that could possibly pass for a verb would be contributing. But contributing is not a verb. Maybe it used to be one, but we added an ing to the end of it, so it's not one any longer. So if we want to actually have a sentence, which we should, we're going to have to possibly change contributing to contribute. So let's look over the answer choices and see which ones actually may possibly do that. Okay, we know A is out, so we get rid of A. We see B with contribute. Oh, all of them have contributes. Okay, so now we have to make some other determinations here. And increased concentration of carbon dioxide and certain other gases in the Earth's atmosphere contributing to global warming. Yes, you're absolutely right. It should just go right directly into contributes. Yes, definitely to contribute. They contribute would assume that Now that's they is very awkward, which is going to assume that there is an independent clause coming before it, which there is not. So we have to get rid of that one. And E, of course, and contributes. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why we're using the conjunction and there. We're definitely not combining clauses. So I think we're just going to have to go with the one that makes the most sense, which is D. Yes. Okay, so, but the point being made here is that if you did not know that you can add an ing at the end of a verb and make it into not a verb anymore, make it into a verbal, you probably would have assumed that contributing is, in fact, the verb. And if you do that, especially here in this very tricky sentence, you would have said there is no change. Why? Because contributing is where it should be if it was a verb, but it is not. And that's the really tricky part of that one. Let's look at another one. Okay, Joseph Baker rose to fame as a dancer, then using her resources to adopt many needy children of all nationalities. Very interesting. Now we know we got an independent clause here. Josephine Baker rose to fame as a dancer. Okay, but what's coming after this comma? Is there supposed to be a dependent clause? Then using her resources. Well, we know using is not a verb. ing indicates that. But we do know about the verb use. So could it possibly be that we're supposed to be saying use and not using? Let's look through the answer choices and see. Okay, we know we're going to get rid of A because we just said it must be a problem with using. B, Josephine Baker rising to fame as a dancer while using. Well, that is even worse because now we don't even have an independent clause. So we're going to get rid of B also. Josephine Baker, who rose to fame as a dancer? Also using pretty much kills it. It started good, but then also using, what's that? That doesn't even make sense because also is an adverb. And what does it modify? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Very awkward. Let's get rid of C. Josephine Baker, she rose to fame as a dancer and then used So we're saying now Josephine Baker is like an introductory clause. Phrase. Let's hold that and see maybe. Let's look at E. Josephine Baker, having risen to fame as a dancer, used. Okay, so now we're actually switching the gerund around, putting it in another place. Yes, no. We decided to get rid of the gerund and turn it into a verb. Yes. And I think we're going to have to go with E because it actually sounds the least awkward than the others. So if I'm a betting man, I would bet on E, and I guess I won. Give me my money. Yes, very interesting. Point being, verbals are really important. They can be really tricky, especially in SAT sentences because you're reading the sentence fast and you run by it and you say, okay, that's the verb, and you keep on going. But you got to stop. You got to think. Does it end in ing? If it does, it's not a verb anymore. So you need to pay close attention. Let us continue. Well, we're going to stop here. That's going to be it for our part 4. We're not trying to watch a video. Hello, woman. We're going to continue with part 5, and we're going to talk about active and passive voice. I know verbals were like really exciting, and I know you're like, wow, do we have to stop? And I feel that, look at me, I feel the same way. Yeah. We will continue with active and passive voice, and hopefully we can get more active than our active and passive voice discussion. If not, then we all going to go to sleep. In Islamic school. I'll talk about tomorrow.
Yeah, that's rolling the hard way. We don't want to roll quite that hard. We want to get one of them little minibuses.
a person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Everybody's gone out of their mind.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome, Mr. Quick's class. Oh, yeah. All right. All right.